Hello, everybody, and welcome to Live Lunch and Learn. I'm Lambros Demos, and I've started doing these live broadcasts now on a regular basis. I'm going to be doing them around lunchtime, maybe two, maybe three times a week, bringing you a lot of quality information, some special guests to help you learn about various things, not just particularly real estate related, but maybe a few other topics as well. And today's broadcast is actually very exciting because it's the first time I'm actually streaming to three different platforms. So you could be watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, all three at the same time. And I have a special guest with me today. She is a realtor in the Boston area, and we connected because we do a lot of the same things, and we have a lot of the same values, and we go about business pretty much the same way. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Annemarie LaTulip.
Hello.
Annemarie,
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How
Welcome
are you
to
doing?
the show. I'm fantastic.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for being on today. So, Annemarie, sorry, before I mess up your town's name, I know you're outside of Boston, but what's the actual town called?
It's called Billerica.
Billerica. Okay, I wasn't sure if it was Billerica or Billerica. Okay, so
no, don't worry. Everybody pronounces it.
Okay, all right. What's tell us a little bit about Billerica.
It's a small suburb north of Boston. It's starting to grow since I was a kid. It used to be a very small town with a very small, New England quintessential town center, but it's getting bigger by the not only population but by technology and commerce and things like that. It's just getting to be a little big city. Nice,
excellent.
Population about 44,000, I'd say.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
Well, I am a performer turned real estate agent. I use my passion for theater and pleasing audiences and making people happy. And I use that in my real estate business because, that's the ultimate goal, is to get them through probably the most important financial transaction of a lifetime with as little stress and overwhelm as possible. So that's what I try to do.
Excellent. That's very important. Obviously, it's the biggest, largest financial transaction they will have in their lifetimes, probably. But I'm curious, when you say performer, not to belay this too much talk about it, but tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, as soon as I was able to, I moved out of my house and I started working in Orlando at Disney World as a dancer / character there.
Oh.
Yes, cool. I did that for some years. And then after Disney, I we call it, graduated to Sesame Street Live, which was a national tour, actually all over the world, really. But I toured nationally for about 10 years with Sesame Street Live.
So, wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
Which character were you?
I was various different characters throughout my career, but mostly I was Elmo. For most of the time, I would say. Or I should say I was Elmo's friend. We're not supposed to say.
Okay, no problem.
There's no children watching, though, I'm guessing, so it's okay.
I don't know who's watching. Okay. Awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so let's shift gears here a little bit. We'll talk about the real estate market. I know you're in the US, I'm in Canada, but our markets have been very similar. I think very competitive, seller's market, no inventory, hardly any inventory. And the problem that I've had and a lot of we've had here in my local market is that a lot of sellers don't want to move because they don't want to put their house on the market for fear of not being able to find another place to go. And that makes the matter worse because the inventory is low already. And now with even less inventory, people don't want to move. So what would you say to a seller who's afraid to put their house on the market?
I would say that there are options for them. I'm sure it can be scary watching the market and seeing how quickly homes are moving and fearing that they'll miss out on house after house. But there's ways that we can, as I'm sure protect them in terms of listing contracts and what we accept from buyers in terms of rent backs, or just delaying the entire process so that we're not closing in 30 days, we're closing in maybe 90 days. They need to know that once they're on the market, they don't have to, it's not completely up to the buyer when they move out of their house, that they have a say too. And that's important when we're, accepting offers or reviewing offers, that they make those terms known, prior to, so the buyers know what to expect and what the sellers want.
Yeah, exactly. So are you finding the same thing that we're finding up here? Firm offers, no conditions. Well, you call them contingencies. I think we call them
Yes, we do.
conditions, right? And then, we used to have condition, on financing or on home inspection. So all those are dropped down there as well, right?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Well, most times, yes. So we have mortgage inspection contingencies, right?
Okay.
So we're having buyers offer, because they're offering so high over asking price, typically. I don't know about up in Canada, but here I'm seeing sometimes 100,000 over the asking price.
Yep.
So
the highest, sorry to interrupt you, the highest I've seen was 300.
Oh my.
Personally. Yeah, exactly. I know they've been going nuts.
Yeah, right. And so these sellers know that there's no way the home is going to appraise that high.
Yes.
So really, they're even asking the buyers. Not only are the buyers including it sometimes, but now the sellers have caught on and they're saying, hey, look, Mr. Buyer, I know it's not going to appraise, but if you want to pay that much, that's fine. But you need to promise me you're going to bring the extra money to the closing table.
100%. I'm glad you brought that up. That's such an amazing and relevant point, because a lot of, never mind buyers, but even realtors don't understand the fact that, again, I can only speak to my local market, but that's fine. If a buyer is pre-approved for a certain amount, let's say they're approved for 800,000, for example, and then, but the property also has to be appraised at a certain level. So if the appraiser thinks that the property is only worth, for example, 750, and the buyer has now paid 800, that extra $50,000 has to be made up somewhere, because if they're only approved for a certain percentage up to 800,000, then it's all that percentage, whatever that shortfall is, they have to make it up. The buyer has to make it up.
Absolutely.
So, and that is something that a lot of people have their hard time wrapping their heads around, and it needs to be really explained to the buyer, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Yep. So it's the same thing down there.
Oh, I'd say 90% of the time it is the same thing. And like I said before, the buyers were just offering, but now the sellers are expecting.
Correct.
So.
Correct. And the same thing up here. Now the sellers have been spoiled. So, and what we found actually is that the last 2 months, since about the end of March, early April, things have slowed down a little bit up here. I don't know if it's slowed down where you are, but, and so now sellers are holding off offers, putting an offer date. And let's say they even get a few offers, 5 or 6 offers. If none of them are what they were expecting, then they're just going to relist their house at the price that they wanted, right? So that's a phenomenon that we're seeing now up here. Are you seeing something similar down there?
Can you repeat that again? So they're putting it on, and if they're not getting what they hoped for, then they're doing what now?
So let's say they were expecting $1 million for their home, right?
Okay.
And they would list it at $899, for example, expecting somebody to bid up upwards of $100,000, right? And they only get, they get 2 or 3 offers, because the market slowed a little bit now. Before March, things were on fire. They would certainly get that $1 million, no problem. But now, because things have slowed a little bit, let's say they don't get that $1 million. So what they're going to do then, reject all the offers that came in and put the house back up the market for $1 million.
Right. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Actually, that hasn't quite started catching on here yet.
No, it might spread down there too.
That's an interesting point, because what I'm seeing here, I don't necessarily see things slowing down. I do see an increase in inventory.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I do, but we still have so many buyers that it hasn't really affected the bidding wars and the lines around the corner at open houses and the multiple offers. I haven't seen a difference. But like I said, we do have a little bit more inventory, at least. It's starting to sort of breathe a little bit.
Yeah. And are you finding a lot of buyers are coming from the bigger cities like Boston and right?
Yes.
And now that's what's driving up the prices in Billerica and other places around you?
Yes.
Right? Yes, we're finding the same thing as well. So the hub is in Toronto, and now buyers are spreading out. We used to say drive until you qualify. Well, that drive used to be an hour. Now it's like 5 hours. Right?
Oh, that's great. I've never heard that
because
before.
It's spread so far.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true, because they're realizing that, the closer to the city, it's probably the same in every major urban area, but I would say that closer to the city, you get sort of smaller and less outdated and sort of just less for your money than what you would get out here in Billerica, So people just want to take the train, and they can, so it's so convenient. So that's what they do.
Exactly. And but I feel bad for the people who've lived their whole lives in the small towns, and now they see I mean, on the one hand, I feel good for them because their own equity is going up. But if they wanted to buy something in that town, they're SOL pretty much, right? Because they're being outbid by the big city folks. So,
right.
And I've heard
it's
that.
So true. It's so true. And isn't it interesting how I don't know if it's like this up in your area. I'm so curious about this. How prices change just from town to town. Two suburbs that are really the same, not much difference really. But in one town, a house will be 800,000, and then the next town over, it'll be 1.2 million. It's just very interesting.
Absolutely.
Like that?
Yeah, we're seeing that as well. It all depends on what that town has to offer, right?
Yeah.
But we have those little pockets as well where, for some reason, the prices aren't accelerating as much as other places.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Very interesting.
Awesome. So, what else would you tell a home buyer these days? Because it's such a competitive market. They have to have all their ducks in a row. But if be more specific, like who do they need to have? Is there a team they need to put around themselves? Tell us about that.
You're talking for a buyer? Absolutely.
Yes, for a buyer. Let's switch to the buyer side now.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Sellers already. We'll go talk about.
I mean, of course, a buyer can choose whoever they want to work with. However, I do have my team of professionals that I work with on a regular basis, so that I know when I'm working with them that everything's going to go smooth. I've worked with them on many, many transactions. So of course, I always suggest if they need an attorney, or if they need an insurance person. And for home inspectors, we're not here in the US, we're not really legally permitted to suggest only one. We have to suggest at least 3.
Okay.
Yes. But I do have my 3 inspectors that I always recommend. But in terms of what do I tell buyers, I think that, this is, and I just did a YouTube video about this because it's so important that buyers understand that we are not in the market of getting a deal or lowballing, or maybe the seller will take, under asking like 50,000. Yeah. I just had a buyer come to me, and 2 houses they wanted to offer $80,000 less than the asking price on brand new listings. And, I said, we're not in that market right now. So I think that's the most important thing for buyers, is to be prepared about what they're getting into in terms of the market.
Managing expectations, right?
Yes.
Sellers' expectations and buyers' expectations. And we're getting the same thing up here for their first time buyer on the market, or actually it's not even the first time home buyers, because they're a little more used to what's happening out here. They've been a little more educated. They like to do their own research. It's usually the older generations, the ones who bought and sold a couple times, and the last time they bought a house was 20 or 30 years ago, and they negotiated and they did get a deal, like you're saying, right? So they're looking for the same thing. So they've been haven't kept up with what's happening now in the market. So those ones are a little tougher to educate as an agent, sure.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. And we have to write up the offer that they tell us to write up, and how do you gently say, this is a waste of time?
Well, sometimes they have to learn the hard way, right? That's
Right,
the way I see
exactly.
it, right? And
Right.
if a client listens to my advice and gets the house, fantastic, right? But sometimes they don't want to listen, or they're listening to their parents, or their, second cousin, twice removed, or whatever, that has bought a few houses in their lifetime,
Yeah,
So, and they're telling them no, but do this. So, hey, sometimes they have to learn the hard way, right? So, what are you
right,
going to do, right?
right.
Excellent. Good. You mentioned YouTube channel, and I'm glad you did, because I mean, I have a YouTube channel as well. We're broadcasting live on it right now, but I was looking at your channel the other day, and very impressed with it. You do a lot of the same things that I do, and one of the things that I love, and I mean, I used to have a segment called Forever Homes, looking for not rescue dogs, really, rescue dogs to be adopted. Unfortunately, that had to stop because of the pandemic. I'll probably starting it up again, but you do something similar, which I was very pleased to see. So tell
Yes.
us about that.
So I've partnered with our local MSPCA
Yep.
here in Massachusetts, and I do a Pet of the Week series. And I get some video of what it's not just dogs, any pet. I just did one
Okay.
on farm birds.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So yeah, they house all different types of animals. But so I get some footage, and again, now I haven't been able to go there in person. Like you were saying, Lambros, pretty soon I will be able to go there in person and just do a little segment with the dog or cat or whatever. And I do an edited video and I post it on my YouTube page, and I put it all over Facebook. And it's actually been very successful. The last 2 dogs I did before I did my farm birds got adopted right away.
Wow.
So I'm really looking forward to when I can actually be there in person, because I think that will be even better.
Excellent. So happy to hear that, and happy that it's working. So you're doing all this, and some good is coming out of it as well. But it's so happy to see that. That's excellent.
I love it.
Great. Yeah, me too. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Annemarie. So if somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure, you can give me an old-fashioned phone call. It's 978-408-9011.
Okay.
My email is Annemarie LaTulip@yahoo.com. And also, if somebody wanted to visit my website, it's pretty simple. thebillrickarealtor.com.
Okay. Perfect. Excellent. Yeah. And you have the social media as well, I'm sure.
I do.
Facebook,
all of the things.
All the things. And do you have links from your website to the social media?
Yes.
Well, okay, perfect.
I do.
Perfect. Okay, so that's excellent. Well, thank you very much, Annemarie. It was a pleasure chatting with you today. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope our audience found something helpful out of this.
Me too. Thanks for having me, Lambros. This was fun.
Pleasure. Bye, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Bye.